Ben,
Oh,
how are you doing?
good. How are you?
You are echoing. Yeah, I think, or maybe I am echoing. I am echoing myself. Yes, that's my fault. I okay. I am no longer echoing things. Okay. Yeah, we were going to start on Zion, and
Don't
did
worry.
you want to say anything before we started, or?
Um, let's see. I didn't have a chance to go over the last part of what we went through. So, um,
Um, So we were just he was telling stories. So he's
I
done this like 3 times, which is go through. So it just for some context, this is his inaugural speech, and several times he's gone through um, all the different rabbis because so the Rebbe was the seventh Chabad Rebbe, and so several times in the speech, what he does is he accentuates how basically what he's saying is an extension of what the each of the rabbis in order were teaching.
Mhm.
And at the end, we were talking about how he was telling actually just Myson, just stories about how each of the Rebbeim were very careful to themselves be involved in the work that they would teach others to do.
Right. So leading by example, and I just thought about it. But is this also an example of Derech Eretz Kadma Torah, or is and I can expand on that. So I'm thinking, is that an example of, and maybe it's also because I'm reading Alachit Man. Is this an example of learning Torah is one thing, and then living through it, living through its teaching,
Enacting it, yeah.
enacting it. Yeah.
Because ultimately, I mean, the whole theme of Baati L'Gani is Ikar Shkina. The point is for the Torah to be enacted in the world in which we live.
Right.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, Zion. Vehine al yidei itkafia ve'ithafcha l'shtut the kedusha. So through this working and turning over of holy folly, al yedei zeh memalen kavadat habriya. Through this, we fulfill the intention of creation. Shehi lihyot lo yitbarach dira b'tachton, which is that there should be a dwelling place for God in the nether realms. V'zeh she'al yedei it hafya veit hafcha na'asit dira b'tachtonim, and the fact that it is through its kafia and its hafcha, right, working, laboring, and conquering or converting things that it makes such a dwelling place for him. Baati L'Gani, I came to my garden. Hu b'madrega yoter na'alit mikodem hachet. So when God's Shekhinah returns, then it has a level in which it is even higher than it was before there was the sin of the tree.
Right.
The kamo besoter binyan hakodem al manat libnot, that just like when someone destroys something in or a building that existed in order to build in its stead, harei pshita shebinyan hachadash sarich lihyot b'madrega yoter. Should be absolutely clear that what he's building there is going to be something that's even better than the building that was there that he destroyed. Na'alit mibinyan hakodam, from the previous building. Kamochen mukhrach lomar shal yedei itkafia v'ithafcha na'asit tira b'madrega yitnalit. Then we have to, from this, we have to understand that it must be that itkafia and ithafcha results in something that is even of a higher level than what explained what existed before. Mevuar b'mamar da al yedei de kafia sitra achra istalek yikra de kuchabrichu the kulhu almin, and it's just so he's explaining the mimer, the teaching of the Frierdiker Rebbe, of the previous Rebbe, that it is through the working of the Sitra Achra, of literally the other side, right? By defeating this other side, Istalek Yikra de Kuchabrichu B'cholahan Almin. The Yikra, the Yikar,
expensive or valuable? Valuable, expensive, yeah.
Yeah. So the aleph at the end is like a hey in Aramaic. Of Kuchabrichu, of the Holy One, blessed be He, is becomes revealed or goes into all of the worlds.
Yeah. One thing that was I just realized this. There is this really, I really like this meta allegory and this idea that I think I learned about it from like Rafaiki's 50, the series that he had.
Mm-hmm.
Talks about self-organized criticality, and he talks about the metaphor of the sand grains. About how, so he talks about you have this first stage where maybe you're dropping sand grains on a flat surface, and it's kind of like variation. It's kind of random. They go into they fall on the floor, but then as you pour more and more, they become higher and higher and higher, and then at some point they kind of like fall down. But what happens is they fall down, and then if you keep pouring, the next iteration is even higher than the first criticality that they achieved. Which, now that I'm thinking about it, is very much like this idea of you reach a point and then you have some kind of like downfall,
right? And that allows for a greater building up,
right? Yeah. So I mean, to extend it more beyond sand grains, yeah. I mean, you learned something. You learned what was your folly, let's say, last time, and then you can extend yourself or you become you're wiser than you were before, because you know, oh, this is a thing that I should avoid maybe next time. Something
I have to think about that more. Because it's that's the first time I've considered it, but that's interesting. Yeah. Okay. Where were we? That is that the light will be in all of the worlds in a equal manner.
Almin is world, olam.
Almin, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Va'af shahalashon hamamar hu or hasovev kol almin. So even though that the mimer is of the previous Rebbe was talking about, so there's two forms of light. There's Sovev Kol Almin and Mamala Kol Almin. So Sovev Kol Almin is that which is transcendent and does not is transcendent and is not changed by the world. One way we talk about this is for example, like the X-rays that just go through things, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to Ha'or Mamalekol Alman, which is the light that fills the world, that interacts with things, just like a visible light will heat things up because it's interacting with them. Mikol makom, אי אפשר לומר שהכוונה הוא שנמשך אור שהוא בגדר העולמות, אלא שהוא סובב ומקיף עליהם. However, it's not possible to say that the intention is that just the light that is in the Geder of the Olamot, that's within so the Or Memale is what is brought down. Ela Shahu Sovev Umakif Alehem, but rather that we are in fact bringing down something that is even beyond them. Ela Hakavana Shenimshach Or Naale She'eno Begeder Olamot Klal. In fact, we're even talking beyond that we're talking about a light that's even beyond Sovav Kol Alman. That's something that's beyond anything of Olamot at all.
Right. So it's not necessarily in relation to the world. It's not outside of it. It's just
beyond.
Beyond.
Yeah. So he's saying that even though the Frierdiker Rebbe speaks about Sovav Kol Alman, in fact, he's talking about a light that is beyond Sovav Kol Alman.
Yeah.
Dehine yesh shnei igrot be'igrot hakodesh. Since I skipped again. Okay, v'lachen koreh legilui or zeh b'shem istalik, and that's why when he talks about this light, he's saying that it's istalik means to go up, right? What does it mean that the light is of Sovav Kol Alman is istalik? Means that there's a light that's being that is being raised up, that is beyond even Sovav Kol Alman. V'lachen gam petirat tzadikim nikra b'shem histalkut. And that's why when we speak about the death of righteous people, we call it histalkut. We call it that person is going up. Ki histalkut hu gilui or na'ale beyoter. Because as is explained, and he'll say that when a tzaddik passes from this world, in a sense, he's found in this world in a way that's more that's less bound, right? Because they're no longer their capacity to affect this world is not as limited as they were when they were alive. Dehine yesh shnei igrot be'igrot hakodesh, that there are two letters in the holy letters in Tanya, shemavairin inyan hahistalkut, that explain what we mean when we talk about histalkut. Ubeigret hasheni inyan hahistalkulut mevuar sham beinyan parat chatat. Okay, and in the second of those letters, it explains that this histalkut, this ascent of the soul of the tzaddik regarding the red heifer, parat chatat, which it's what happens is that there's tumat met, there is the very strict impurity of death, which can only be removed through the ashes of the red heifer, and the ashes of the red heifer is a very strange thing that it's metaher tameim umetamet tahorim. It seems to be it's not just something that in fact purifies that which is impure, but it somehow causes impurity in those that are pure. I don't remember the exact letter in Tanya, but we'll see what exactly he means. The ha'inyan hanasit bifnim ein yacholim levarer gimel klipot hatameot. That the ha'inyan hanasim bifnim ein yacholim levarer gimel ki im inyan hanasir b'chutz davka para hanaasit b'chutz. That when we are talking about that which this work that needs to be done in clarifying the three impure husks cannot be done within the temple. Rather, it must be something that's done outside the temple in the profane, like the red heifer, which is its service is done outside the temple itself.
Right. Yeah, I'm reading the Vaikon now.
Right.
And yeah, there's the differences. There's different altars.
Yeah.
The one in the holy, and you have different. Yeah, you do different sacrifices in each, so you can't. So I can see that echoing there as well.
Yeah. This is, and again, we're talking about stuff I don't know well, but okay. The lazeh medamin mitatam shel tzaddikim, and there it explains the analogy with the death of a righteous person. Okay. Vehine ata ein paraduma, but now we do not have the red heifer. Ki mipnei chatatenu hayinu tzarich lihiot davka galinu me'artzenu. So, like it says in the prayers, mipnei chatatenu galinu me'artzenu, because of our sins, we were exiled from our land.
Yeah.
So he says that means that sin requires us to be exiled from our lands. Aval ira silukan shel tzadikim.
Yeah, this is interesting because it says but or however.
Yeah. Ira silukan shel tzadikim. I'm gonna check the English because I just want to make sure I'm not going way off here. The one raises the demise of the tzaddikim is termed Histalkus. This explains that the red heifer, right, sanctuary, which is so at present we lack, so that there has transpired the demise of tzaddikim concerning the husband. So he says now we don't have the para aduma, but we do have it. We have experienced the death of righteous people. V'hinei be'inyan silukan shel tzadikim yesh bazeh shnei mamre razal. And regarding the passing of righteous people, there are two things that our sages have said. Shekula mitatan shel tzadikim kisreifat beit Elokeinu, that there is an equivalence between the death of a righteous person as the destruction of the house of our God. And kasha tzilukan shel tzadikim yoter mechurban beit hamikdash, says that it's more difficult that a righteous person dies from the fact that the Beit Hamikdash, the temple, holy temple, was destroyed. Asher al yedei kol ze istalek yikra the kucha berichu, that through all of this, there is a revelation of the greatness of God. Upirish inyan histalkut pirusho kol har rebeim kavud, and regarding the this passing, all of the Rebbeim explained. Kavod Kedushat Admar Zaken, the Alter Rebbe, Kavod Kedushas Admar Emtzai, the Middle Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, the Maharash, the Rebbe Rashab, and the Frierdiker Rebbe. She'ein hakavana bepirush tevat histalkut, that the meaning of histalkut is not shehu aliyah lamala chas v'shalom, doesn't mean that God forbid they have left us to go above. Ki'im hakavana shehu nimtza lamata ela shehu bebichinat romemut. Rather, what it means is that he is still found in this world in a manner of height, of being in an elevated manner.
This is talking about the light.
No, this is talking about Nishmatan Shel Tzadikim.
Nishmatam Shel Tzadikim. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so when we say that a tzaddik was mistalek, we don't mean that by mistalek that the tzaddik is now in the heavens. We mean that how he is to be found in this world is in a manner of height. V'zeh tov'in me'itanu, and this that they require from us. Dor hashvi Kavod Kedushat Admar Zaken, which is the 7th generation from the Alter Rebbe. The whole Hashviin Chavivin, and all 7ths are considered dear. As Hagam, as Mahat das Nitz Fardint Nitz Ois Gahor Revet. I have no idea what those Yiddish words mean.
Two Persians trying to read Yiddish. That's not gonna work.
Yeah, not gonna work. Although we have not earned it and have not toiled for it, nevertheless, all those who are 7th are most beloved. I think that's what that Yiddish there means. The English translation. Okay. Mikol makom kol hashvin chavivim. All the 7s are still. V'ha'avoda are still dear. V'ha'avoda, the door hashvi, and the labor that the 7th generation, who lahamsh hashchina lamata mamish, is to draw down the shchina down to the world truly. Lahapoch hashtut, the nefesh habahamit, to turn over the folly of the animal soul. Asher yada inish ben nafshe, that each person knows about themselves. As hat das, how it is for him, I think. Let's see. The spiritual task, every man knows only too well that he possesses. Okay. Und dem kann kach von Nemesh HaBahamit, was hat das unefscher amal noch niederken לעשות מזה ולהפוך את זה לשטות לקדושה. I am just going to read the English translation, which every man knows only too well that he possesses, and the passions, if not worse, of his animal soul, converting and transforming them into the folly of holiness. So he's saying that whatever darkness there is in your soul, and each person knows the darkness of their own soul, he has an obligation to turn it over to a holy folly.
Yeah. So now, how is the soul of the righteous man connected to this? Like, how is this? Because we spoke about the folly and turning that, or transforming that. What is the soul of the holy man? Why is it important that it's still here, or that it's up but still?
So tzaddik yisod olam, right? The righteous person is the foundation upon the earth.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we could actually look up the letters in Tanya where this is explained more clearly. But the general idea is that the fact is that tzaddikim, that righteous people, Ra Kadosh Baruch Hu tzaddikim muatam hem ufazaran b'chol dor, that God, in order for the world to exist, there must always be righteous people. And since there are so few righteous people, God has kind of sprinkled these souls throughout the generations as kind of guideposts for us, right? A tzaddik, and this is really what Tanya gets into most deeply, right? A tzaddik is a different type of person than the rest of us. The rest of us we have a job that we are sinful people, and we have to work in order to help move our dark lusts and our dark sinful natures towards something that is less sinful than it was before. Whereas a tzaddik is for him, repentance is something completely different, because there is he doesn't have any possibility of actually sinning, and his whole point, the point of his repentance, is in helping the rest of us achieve our tikkun. And so when while there always must be, and this is one of my big fights with everybody else in Chabad, there must always be a melech basar v'dam. There must be a king who is enclothed in flesh.
Right.
At the same time, that doesn't mean, chas v'shalom, that, for example, Moses is not with us in a more real sense than he was even when he was here physically, because tzadikim b'mitatan nikraim chayim, and so there is an aspect in which, even in their deaths, they're found with us in helping us be better than we were.
Right, and this is why the red heifer was brought up, to Is that how the connection there between the red heifer that purifies?
I'll be honest, I don't even remember the letter in Tanya. If you want, we can look up the letter in Tanya. Let's see where the letter in Tanya. Which
yeah, I wouldn't know from. Like, I'm just logically trying to connect it because I'm not sure why the red heifer.
I am not either.
It sounds logical, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah. So he says, so Sof Chaf Zion and Chaf Het. So let me go find. Okay, so this is letter 27, and apparently towards the end. Lifetime.
Something about a tzaddik.
Yeah, this is. I mean, the whole letter is about the death of a tzaddik. I'm just trying to find out, see where he mentions the para aduma, the red heifer. As you can see, this is not a short letter. Let me see. It says in the second letter, he talks about the para aduma. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is the second letter. And this letter was written by the Alter Rebbe to his relative by marriage, the famous rabbi and Gaon, the godly man, the holy man, lamp of Israel, pillar of the right hand, mighty hammer, master Levi Yitzchak. This is the Berditchever Rebbe, the Kedushat Levi, head of the rabbinic court of the Holy Community of Berditchev, to console him on the passing of his son, the pious Rabbi Reb Meir. May his soul rest in Eden. Why was the passage concerning the passing of Miriam adjoined to the passage concerning the red heifer? So Numbers 20 and Numbers 19. To teach you that just as the heifer affects atonement, so does the passage of the righteous. Now it needs to be understood why the passage concerning the passing of Miriam was adjoined specifically to the passage concerning the red heifer, which was prepared outside the three camps, and as such was not a sacrifice proper, except that the Torah calls it a sin offering. And it was not adjoined to the passage concerning the sin offering that was prepared within on the altar, and as such affects actual atonement. We'll do the notes. Now the mystical principles of the sacrifices offered on the altars, known from the sacred Zohar and from Rabbi Isaac Luria of blessed memory, they are an instance of the elevation of Mayin Nukvin, the feminine waters, deriving from the animal soul, which receives its life force from the Klipat Noga, which is the shining husk. So there's the three impure husks, which cannot be redeemed. And then there's the then there's the shining husk, which although it is mostly evil, it can be redeemed. This elevation ascending to their root and source, i.e. the forms of the four animals of the celestial chariot which bear the throne. So this is Ezekiel's chariot, has four faces. And as described in Ezekiel chapter 1, the face of the ox, the face of the eagle, and so on. As a result, reciprocating this arousal, the Mayin Duchrin, the male waters from above, are elicited and descend from the level of divinity called in Ezekiel the man upon the throne, Adam Sha'al Hakise. That's who is also referred to as Malka, that is also referred to as the king, or Zer Anpin, which is the six emotional attributes. That's Zer Anpin, whereas the Mayin Nukbin would be Malchut. So we're talking about there being a movement within Malchut, which causes a descent from this Zer Anpin. That's the six midot.
Like Gvura, Chesed.
Yeah. Chagat Nehi. Yeah. As for the burning of the red heifer, however, it is on account of the throwing in of the cedar wood and the hyssop, right? And so on, the functioning of both of which is hamshacha, drawing down sanctity from above, and moreover, the placing of running water into the ashes, that in the Mishnah, this process is called the sanctification of the purifying waters, kiddush me chatat. This relates not only etymologically to Kodesh HaElyon, referred to as Tala de Bedulcha, as it is stated in the sacred Zohar. This Tala de Bedulcha is an expression of the supreme Chokhmah and the Mochas Tima of Erech Anpin. Okay, of this level of Chokhmah and Mochas Tima, it is said that in many places in the sacred Zohar that through Chokhmah they are refined. But Chokhmah itbaru. And then when, by means of the sanctification of the purifying waters, I'm going to try to understand this before I try to explain it, because I'd rather understand what I'm translating before I try to translate it. Divine light is drawn down from the levels. Darkness is converted to light, that is, to the world of Tikkun, which becomes refined and rectified by means of the Mochas Tima of Erech Anpin. The world of Tikkun is refined and rectified from the world of Tohu and the breaking of the vessels whose sparks fell into the worlds of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, and so on, as it is known. This is why the red heifer purifies one from defilement with a corpse, even though this corpse is the ultimate degree of impurity and far, far lower than Noga. Now it is known that Abba draws its sustenance from the eighth Mazal. This is the tuft of Notzer Chesed. Here's another Notzer Chesed La'alafin. The Hebrew Notzer is composed of the same letter as Ratzon. This is et Ratzon that becomes revealed and radiates in a manifest way from above downward at the time of the passing of tzaddikim of stature, who serve God out of love and surrendering their soul to God during their lifetime, every evening and morning when reading Shema. For thereby they would elevate Mayin Nukbin to Abba and Ima during the reading of the Shema, as is known. The same applies to their study of the Torah, which derives from Chokhmah. Thereby, the Mayin Duchrin were elicited and drawn down from the tufts of Notzer Chesed. And indeed, it is these illuminations that radiate in a manifest way at the time of the passing of tzaddikim. For as is known, all the effort of man in which his soul toiled during his lifetime, and which remains above in a hidden, obscured state, is revealed and radiated in a manifest way from above downward at the time of his passing. Now, by illumination from the tuft of Notzer Chesed that is revealed at the time of the passing of tzaddikim, the Chesed of God radiates to the world, from world to world, over those who fear Him. and effects salvation in the midst of the earth to atone for the sin of the generation, even for the deliberate sin which are of the three impure klipot that are inferior to Noga. For the mazal of Notzer Hesed is of the mochen steamin of Arachin, which is the source of the task of berurim. The darkness incurred by the wrecking of the vessels is therefore converted into the light of world of Tikkun. This is not the case, though, with the sacrifices that are offered upon the altar. They atone only for an inadvertent sin, which come about because of the strengthening of the animal's soul from Noga, as it is stated in the Torah of the Arizal, Parshat Vayikra. This, then, is why the passage of concerning Miriam was adjoined expressly to the passage concerning the red heifer, to teach you that just as the heifer affects atonement, so does the passing of the righteous. The Yalkut Parsha Shmini, the heifer reads the waters of purification.
You know that joke when somebody like tells you something and they have important information for you, and then it cuts off, and then at the end they come through and they say, "This is why you should not." And this is what this was. Like, say, this is what it means, and I didn't understand it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what he is explaining is that when you need to affect a deeper, so the lower a darkness is, the higher must be the source of the the tikkun, the rectification of that. Okay, so when we talk about sins which are from the Gimel Klipot Tameot, right? These cannot be affected through the normal manners. Rather, it requires that you elicit something from far above even tikkun. So we're talking above the normal manner, and that's why there has to be an eliciting all the way from Notzer Chesed, which is Ratzon, which is above Keter. And that is affected by that which is the lowest. So if I can try to make this clear with this, right? So because we have to elicit a response, and mei chatat, all the way from Keter, what elicits that response has to come from Malchut.
Okay. So from the lowest.
Yes. And that's why the death of a tzaddik is comparable to the mechatat of a paraduma, because a paraduma, right, it's not like an offering. It's not like things which are done in the temple. It is something that is done that takes place outside, right? It has a capacity to elicit a drawing down of a cleansing power that comes actually from tohu. And I think that's why the Rebbe is referring to here so much talking about, he's talking so much about shtut, right? Because we are at a level where we need to elicit shtut the kedusha.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is the type of thing that, I mean, I'm trying to explain as best as I can, but there are aspects to it which you have to grasp on your own level.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not comfortable yet with a lot of these
Concepts.
Even though I know more definitely than what I used to, or every week I learn more, but this is still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just, as a small summary of what the letter is saying. The red heifer is a purifying, is something that purifies, which is outside the normal ways in which the temple purifies. And in a similar manner, the death of a tzaddik creates an atonement in a way that is incomparable to the normal ways of atoning, because we are talking about something that is in the Gimel Klipot Tameot. We're talking about the 3 impure husks. We're not merely talking about the shining husk.
I think I understand maybe, or I guess I'm trying to think about the laws, because that's what I'm learning now in the parashot. So the red heifer, the only thing it's used for in terms of purification is the purification from tumah, from the death.
Tumat met, yeah, which is in fact the highest form of impurity is the death, is the impurity of death.
And which is why you cannot go into the temple without doing that. And then in the temple, the purification that is done is, purification here is kind of like in some ways interchangeable with like atonement.
Right. I mean, it's not completely interchangeable, but they are related.
Right, because for the inadvertent sin, I mean, you do. Is that the parat chatat, or the parat chatat is the red heifer?
The parat chatat is the red heifer. So you cannot actually bring a sin. There are 3 sin offerings for particular sins that are in fact deliberate sins. But the general rule is that there are the certain things which cannot be redeemed. But even for those things that cannot be redeemed, there is an aspect of shtut the kedusha, which can affect some sort of rectification, which is beyond any understanding. And Parat Aduma, honestly, I mean, that it is the quintessential example of something which is beyond our understanding.
Right. So if I can make an analogy, it's if I work at a company, if I make a mistake in the design of a feature, let's say, and maybe my manager so I make a small mistake, and then my direct manager tells me, okay, you need to like fix this.
Mm-hmm.
If I release confidential information,
Mm-hmm.
my manager is not gonna. The manager of my manager is gonna come to me and tell me either you're fired or so.
Yeah.
The bigger the mistake, the more like higher up.
Yeah, the bigger the mistake, the more the higher up has to come the rectification.
Okay.
There's that's definitely a part of it. Okay, where were we? Okay, so heads, it's all you.
Okay. וזהו עניין צדיק דאתפטר.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the matter of the holy man who has passed away.
Mm-hmm.
דאף שכבר היו כמה העולמות והסתרים,
Mm-hmm.
וכמה קושיות ועניינים בלתי מובנים,
Mm-hmm.
even though there were a few hidden things
Mm-hmm.
and questions and unclear matters,
Mm-hmm.
הנה כל זה לא הספיק.
Right. I'm not sure what he's saying yet.
Yeah.
So this is apparently a story from from the Zohar regarding a tzaddik that left work unfinished. That left work unfinished, even though there were things that he was capable of doing. There were secrets and questions and misunderstandings which he could have clarified. He still was. It's pater. It's pater. I mean, it does mean to pass, but
Pass away.
it also pater means that it was patur means it was something that he was released, right?
Yeah.
So in a sense, the question is, how could it be that without? I think that's what he's saying. That without completely finishing his work, he was patur.
Right. Got it. ובכדי שיהיה הסתלק, יקרא דקדוש ברוך הוא בכולו על מי. And for him to be released, or
וכדי שיהיה הסתלק יקרא דקודש בריך הוא בכולו על, so that there should be God's yakar, God's light, exposed in all of the worlds.
היה ג' כוחות או גם כן עניין צדקן של צדיקים. Also there was the matter of the
passing
of the tzadikim,
of
the righteous. שזה קשה לא רק כחורבן, כי אם יותר מהחורבן. Which is not as hard as or as devastating as the temple ruin, but even more devastating than that. ותכלית הכוונה בזה הוא שעל ידי זה יהיה הסתלק יקר דקדוש ברוך הוא. And the essence of this is that by this event, or by this
the revelation of the light of God.
Yeah, istalek yakar, but we're saying not the revelation, isn't that the hit?
Well, so I mean, he's making a hekesh, right? So when we talk about histalkut of a tzaddik, when we talk about the passing of a tzaddik, at the same time, there's an istalek yikra the kuchabrichu. There's a revelation of the light of God.
Right. Okay. I think I get it. וזה טובים מכל אחד מאיתנו, שידעו אז מגפינט זכריים דור השביעי.
So that we what is required of each of us is that we know that we
are the seventh generation, or should this?
Yeah, something like that. I'm trying to find the. This is the man to know that we find ourselves in the seventh generation, that we are the seventh generation.
שכל מעלת השביעי הוא שהוא שביעי לראשון. That the whole matter of the height of the seventh is that it's to the first. Sorry.
Right, that it's part of that order.
Right. So the Rishon here would be the tzaddik. Maybe it's right there.
Right. Yeah.
שהנהגת הראשון היה שלא חיפש לעצמו כלום, ואפילו לא
מסירות נפש.
מסירות נפש. That the leadership of the first was that he didn't ask for anything for himself, ואפילו לא מסירות נפש, and even gave
and even self-sacrifice was not something that he desired.
Oh, okay. Right. He didn't even right. Okay. Interesting. כי ידע שכל עניינו הוא כמו
שכתוב, ויקרא שם בשם הוויה kel olam. So like we were talking about earlier about Abraham, right? The whole point of, so we started with Abraham as the first and Moses as the seventh, right? The whole point of Abraham was, it says, v'ikra sham b'shem havaya kel olam, al tikra v'yikra ella v'yakri. That he didn't call upon the name of God, rather he caused the name of God to be called.
Got it. With kind of like reminds me of the parting of the dead, the parting of the sea, and Nachshon.
Right.
Josh.
Well, yeah, Nachshon ben Ani. Right. So he was. So that's Tachlit HaMesirut Nefesh. That he just wanted God's greatness to be revealed to the point of Mesirut Nefesh, of being willing to die.
Yeah. ודוגמת הנהגת אברהם אבינו שהוא, and there's an example of the leadership of Abraham. שהוא גקומן ein הזלחת הרטר ווס מעט דרטנית.
This is a lot of Yiddish. That whole sentence is. That's a very long thing of Yiddish. Let's go see what the English translation of all that Yiddish is. This one I'm supposed to know. So this kind of divine service resembles that of Abraham, arriving in places where nothing was known of godliness. Nothing was known of Judaism. Nothing was even known of the Aleph base. And while they're setting oneself completely aside and proclaiming God's name in the spirit of the teaching of the sages, do not read he proclaimed, but he made others proclaim. So even though there was nothing, he where is the
quite the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So very interesting. Makes me think about like Yesh Me'ayin, and like he brought something.
Yeah, I mean he brought it was that from the where there was nothing, like he was the first. Yeah. Okay. וידוע.
אל תקרא ויקריא אלא ויקריא וידוע. Okay. במידת אל תקרא, שתי הקריאות קיימות. So maybe שתי הקריאות קיימות, like the two calls exist. So is this talking about like, it's not only that it's emergence, it's also emanation. Is that the same idea? of like, not only caused it, but it's also
right. So no. So whenever the sages say, "Don't read it this way, read it that way," right? Because you can always read a pasuk with different with different ta'amim, with different pronunciations, but when they say that, it doesn't mean that the first one is wrong and the second one is right. It means that both of them are right.
Got it. Okay, yeah, I understood it differently. וגם בזה הרי מפורש בתורה שבכתוב.
Vayikra. Right. So the Torah itself is clearly saying, so don't chas v'shalom say that when they say don't read it this way, read it that way, that you shouldn't read what it says in the Torah itself. Obviously, that's still it.
Right, the pshat.
But
maybe.
Yeah.
מכל מקום, צריך לידע.
And then there's a whole other huge thing.
I got all the Yiddish today.
Of Yiddish, yes. Good thing you got all the Yiddish, because let's see what all this Yiddish means. Nonetheless, it must be known that if a person desires to succeed in enjoying his own proclamation, he must see to it that others not only know but proclaim as well. Okay, and all the let me see where the Yiddish ends. Honestly, the rest of this whole chapter looks like it's in, so I'm going to just read it in English. And although until now one's fellow man was utterly ignorant, one is now obliged to see to it that he too vociferously proclaim, joining God and world together, and not God of the world. Kel olam, not kel shel olam. For the latter phrase would imply that God is an entity unto himself and the world is a separate entity unto itself, except that God governs and rules the world. Rather, godliness and the world are wholly one. So he's making a thing that when it says kel olam, right? It's not saying that there's kel and then there's olam. It's kel olam. It is that God is that which runs, that which makes the world exist, and God is the being of the world.
Mm-hmm. Right. This is the Shema. This is the.
That's it's right. Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Yeah, very much so. Okay, last part. Tet. Va'af mi hu ze ve'ezahu asher arav libo lemor evor avodat Abraham Avinu.
You're not sharing that, by the way, the screen of the Hebrew.
Sorry. Now I am. Okay. Va'af ki mi hu ze ve'ezahu. So who can be such a person to say, to awaken his heart to say, avodat Abraham Avinu, that I'm going to do the work of Abraham. Mikol makom efes katzehu shayach lekol achat ve'achat. Rather, there is some manner in which there is a connection for each and every one. Umechuyav bezeh, and he is obligated to do this. V'nitnu lo hakochot al zeh, and he has the potential for this. Al yedei hahanhaga shaharenu harishon, through the manner that the work that the first one showed us, right? Abraham showed us, so we can follow in his stead in some manner. Umimenu ve'ilech ad, and from him and the further ones more. Va'ad bechlal. So everyone else, including, right? That includes the teachings of the previous Rebbe. Shehem salalu et haderech, that they
road for us, or
they pounded down the path. They made a path for us. V'natnu lanu kochot al zeh, and gave us the potential for this. V'zehu gufa hachavivut the dor hashvi, and this itself is the dearness of the seventh generation. Shekama kochot nitnu v'nitgalu b'shvilaynu. That's many potentials, powers were given and revealed for our sake. V'al yedei ha'avodah be'ofen kazeh, and through laboring in this manner, yumshach ikar shchina, the main aspect of the shchina can be brought down, lamata ba'olam hazeh, down to this world, hagashmi v'hachumri, the material and physical world. ויהיה עוד במדרגה נעלית יותר גם מקודם החטא, and it will be even a greater level than existed before the sin. וכמו שכתוב במשיח, ונעשה מאוד יותר מאדם הראשון, like it is said regarding the Messiah in Isaiah 52:13, that he will be more greatly exalted than Adam. Va'afilu k'moshe haya kodem hachet, even as Adam was before he sinned. וכבוד קדושת מורנו חותמנו אדמו"ר אשר את חלנו הוא נשא ומחובנו סבלם. And regarding our the previous Rebbe who bore our sicknesses and our pains, והוא מחולל מפשענו מדוכא מעוונותינו, that he was pierced for our transgressions, how Christians translate this, Isaiah 53, and Hare Keshem Shara'a B'tzaratenu, since he was a witness to our difficulties, Hine b'mhera b'yameinu v'gala didan yigael tzon marito, that quickly and in our days shall be redeemed the sheep of his flock, migalut haruhani v'galut hagashmi gam yachtav, from the spiritual exile and the physical exile together. V'hamidenu b'keren ora, and he will establish us in a place of light. Aval kol zehu adayin rak giluim, but all of these things are just revelations, be'od yoter, and more so, sheyikasher v'yahed otanu b'mahut v'atzmut ein sof baruch hu, that he will connect us and unify us with the essence and with the, how's Mahut Avatzmut usually translated? Essence and Mahut Avatzmut.
Smooth.
There's a translation of Mahut Avatzmut, which is, why am I forgetting what the translation of Mahut Avatzmut is? Essence and something. Anyway, the essence and essence of the infinite, blessed be He. V'zehu pnimiut hakavana, and that is the inner intention, shel yeridat v'hishtalshalut ha'olamot, of the descent and chain of descent of the world. Ve'inyan hachet betikuno, and the sin and its rectification. Ve'inyan silukan shel tzadikim, and the matter of the death of the righteous. She'al yedei zeh yihyeh istalek yikra dekut shabrichu. That through these things there should be a revelation of the greatness, the light of God. Yotzienu mehagalut beyad rama, and that He will take us out of the exile with an outstretched arm, I guess. V'lachol bnei Yisrael yihyeh or b'moshvotam. That, and for all of Bnei Israel there will be light in their dwellings. Yihyeh az yashir Moshe u'Bnei Israel. There will be, so Moses and Bnei Israel sang, right, the song of Moses, V'gomer, Havaya yimloch l'olam va'ed, that God shall be the king forevermore. Uchamo hu benusach hatefillah, and just like it is explained in the words of the liturgy, v'gam belashon hatargum, and also in the translations to Aramaic, Havaya malchute kayim la'olam olmei almaya, that God, His kingdom will be established forever and ever. U'mesayimim v'haya Hashem lemelech al kol haaretz, and we finish our prayers with Aleinu, and God will be the king of all the land. Havaya echad u'shmo echad. God shall be one, and His name shall be one. Shelo yihyeh chiluk bein havaya u'shmo, that there will no longer be any difference between God's inner essence, His self, and how we understand Him, His name. Shekol ze na'aseh al yedei silukan shel tzadikim, that all of this happens through the silukan, the death of the righteous. Shekashe yoter gam mechurban beit hamikdash, that is even more difficult than the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. V'kevan az meiz shavin di al inyanim de dorchnangen hine achshav ein davar tuli elabanu. And well, let me see what the English translation is, because I know I'll butcher it. Since we have already experienced all these things, okay. Shelo yihyeh, where were we? Hine achshav ein hadavar tului ela banu. So all that is left is that which we are capable of doing. Dor hashvi'i, the seventh generation. V'nizke den sich mitten rabin da lamata in aguf ulamata asara tefachim v'hu yigalenu, and we will have the capacity to greet our rabbi here below in a body below 10 cubits, what exactly that means, and he will redeem us.
Right. So is the revelation or the istalkut, the passing of the light, which is the revelation of the light. That is what we spoke about at the beginning in terms of the bringing it down from heaven to heaven. Those are revelations, as opposed to bringing it down to the earth, which is
right. So every generation, I mean, there has been, but specifically what the Rebbe said was that in this generation, which is the seventh generation, it's our job to actually bring it to the end and have a the matter of thing. Wow. Okay. Wait. Okay. What were we saying? Yeah. I hadn't realized he ended with so much with whatchamacallit, Isaiah 53. That's interesting.
What's the implication of that, you think?
Well, I mean, he was talking about the death of. I mean, obviously, he's speaking on the anniversary of the death of the previous Rebbe.
Mm-hmm.
So, part of what he was talking about is particularly about the death of the Rebbe, previous Rebbe. But he also makes a point talking about how. I think part of it is also you have to realize that this was shortly after. I mean, the Rebbe became Rebbe in 1952, 54, something like that. It was right after the Shoah, right after the Holocaust, and there definitely was a sort of belief along in many circles that after something like the Shoah, that Mashiach had to come because there was so much death, and frankly, I think partially what was when he was talking about Mei Chatat of the Paraduma and Shchite Chutz, those who had been destroyed on the outside, right? This is there. There certainly was at the time a big emphasis on after the Holocaust, Mashiach must be coming in this generation.
Right, after something so lowly.
Yeah, I mean, specifically all the deaths and everything that went along with that. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that connection there. Interesting. So, how do we think that this helps us or sets the direction for what's next?
Well, frankly, I want to get into Shtut the Kedusha more.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned something. Did you mention something specific, like
there was a sikha that I pointed out.
Yeah.
I mean, in Torah studies on Parshat Naso, he does talk about Sota and Shtut and Shtut the Kedusha, right? So maybe, I mean, we could do that that next. That's from Parshat Naso. I forget where Naso is. Although, I mean, it's coming up. Naso is right after Shavuot, so and not too long from now. Yeah, we could do Naso here.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, in Torah studies, and that is where's the original? It's volume 2 of Likutei Sichot. We could do that. I thought it would give a better doing Baati L'Gani would give us a better conception of some of the basics of Hasidic philosophy, because last time when we did the first Sikha, I kind of felt like it was pointing at a lot of things that weren't explicitly explained. And I don't know. Maybe what we really should do is dig into Tanya. I've also considered that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're definitely jumping into the deep end.
Yeah, I mean that chapter specifically maybe was was more deep than even though
Oh,
everything.
you mean chapter 25? I
Tanya?
mean the letter 20. Which letter was it that we were doing? Fraudwith says yes, Tanya.
Yeah, I mean I would be definitely.
Epistle 28. Yeah, I mean if you want to do Shar Yichud Ve'Amuna, Shar Yichud Ve'Amuna is definitely. I mean,
What is Shari Chud and Emuna?
it is the second or Igeret HaTeshuvah. Um, this so this is lessons in Tanya. The first part of Tanya is Likutei Amarim, also known as Sefer Shel Beinanim, and then the second part is Shar Yichud Ve'Emuna, which is a discourse on the unity of God.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's Igeret HaTeshuvah, which is a discourse on repentance.
Right.
That might actually be the one to go. Igeret HaKodesh is a collection of letters, and we read letter 28 there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, this was a letter written by the Alter Rebbe to the Berditchever, and frankly, he's only talking Rosh Prakim. He's not saying a lot of things very clearly.
Right.
And I mean, but we could do the letters too. And Kuntras Acharon is I don't even remember what Kuntras Acharon was about. Latter booklet on several chapters are not near as homogeneous as one might expect. Yeah, so apparently Kuntras Acharon is just like a collection of the Alter Rebbe talking about several different things.
Right.
I mean, Igeret HaTeshuvah, like you can't go wrong with Igeret HaTeshuvah. It's on repentance.
Yeah, I feel like that could be something we can do. I'd be happy to go through that.
Okay, so I mean, I don't know if you want to wrap up today early because I know you're flying out.
Yeah.
Or or we can. Oh, you're going to be gone for next week, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the week after, or no?
No, the week after I'm here. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we're skipping next week.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah. I mean, if you want, we can jump into something right now if you have time. But yeah. What if you want? I mean, we could do that Torah studies, or we could do a different thing, or we could do Tanya. We have one vote for Tanya.
Yeah.
And in Tanya, I mean, there's I don't know if I mean. Yeah, I mean, I'm always down for learning Tanya. You can't.
Yeah.
Don't threaten me with a good time. So.
Yeah, I mean the repentance is an interesting, and I guess is something that I would be interested in. The Tanya is definitely something I would be interested. The ashtut is also the shtut, the idea, which I think is connected anyway. Would also be.
It is. You know, I'm thinking next. Let's go at least. Let's do one more sicha.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this one. Yeah. The reason I decided to jump into the mimer is just because reading that previous sicha, I kind of felt like there wasn't. it wasn't clear what he was saying because he was just alluding to a lot of things that people that he expected Hasidim to already be familiar with.
Well, actually, I think now that we've read this, I think it's really helpful for me, at least, to understand the mission of the Rebbe, which is maybe a collective mission, because
Yeah.
I didn't know that in explicit terms. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting,
Yeah.
and that probably views a lot of like everything that he writes is like with that in mind.
Yeah. I
So
mean, yeah. Yeah. I told you, supposedly when the Rebbe first gave this speech and it was written, it was taken to the Rav, and the quote apparently from the Rav was, "The Meshuggah thinks he's Mashiach."
mhm. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, maybe I'll take advantage. Maybe I'll wrap up, um,
Okay.
and I'll go help with packing. I can hear it happening in the background.
You, if your wife is packing, you should definitely go help your wife with packing.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna end the broadcast.